Bienvenidos a Pájaro Desayuno de Osmo. Mi nombre es tu viejo amigo Emac. There we go, Adam. In honor of the game in Mexico City, my attempt at trying to remember a little broken Spanish, a little broken Spanglish. For those of you that don't speak two languages, or at least not broken Spanish like I can speak with a poor accent and poor pronunciation, welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac, joined by one Adam Ship, my money sharer, as we walk through a fun 6-game slate. There are 7 games tomorrow, but the 5 o'clock game is played in Mexico City between the Utah Jazz and the Orlando Magic. It's a back-to-back in Mexico City, or Ciudad Mexico, for the Magic. So that will be interesting. I believe that's the first time they've ever done kind of a quote home team getting 2 home games abroad. So that is kind of interesting. Adam, thoughts? What did you take in high school? What was your language that you had to do?
I took Spanish in high school and college, and then I worked in restaurants for like 5 years. So I should know way more Spanish than I do, but it's one of those, I kind of can understand it when people speak it slowly to me still, but I can't really remember how to speak it myself.
Yeah, I had 2 years way back in the day in high school. So.
I think I ended up with 4 years total. I took 3 years in high school and 1 in college.
Well, there you go. Goodness, you should know more than me. Did I sound reasonably okay? Would you have gotten that if I hadn't given you a heads up?
Yeah, I understood you.
Okay,
or at least most of it.
Well, these were words that I know. Well, I said the breakfast bird. I don't know what early is in Spanish.
Yeah. I caught breakfast in there and was trying to figure out what you had said.
So I was attempting her. I didn't want to cheat and go to the translation. I was trying to do it off the top of my head, but we're having a little bit of fun. Of course, we're recording this on Friday night. Adam and I have each done 3 shows, so we feel like we have been talking basketball nonstop because we basically have. So let's give you a few fun things. The early bird promo code, if you go to osmo.com, click the join page, you can get 1 free week of premium Osmo content. Fill out the information, the last little field, put in early bird, 1 word. And if you pick a package that has the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you will get that as well. You'll get Slack, you'll get all the projections, both for players as well as the proprietary ownership projections that Osmo himself has developed. You get Osmo's personal grades for players in all of the main sports, graded both for value and potential performance, aka production. You get the Fast Eddie Fear rankings for cash games and for tournaments. In basketball, you get Adam and Laffy taking turns writing the deep dive 6 days a week, which is, I think, the best article in the industry for basketball. So take a bow there, mis amigo. And then you get the rest of us here, early shows, talking strategy, taking a nice meandering look through things. You can catch us going game by game about 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. In the meantime, we're going to give you a first look here, position by position, as we are checking out Saturday's slate. Looking for, let's see, let me get back to my injury page. We've got, a few things we're waiting on. The back-to-backs are going to be Boston, Charlotte, Memphis, and Oklahoma City. And then with regards to some of the key injuries, Devin Booker, we're still, waiting word what's going to happen. He's got a hamstring issue. Mike Conley has a hamstring issue of his own. He is on a back-to-back, so we'll have to see what happens against Houston. I suspect he's going to play, but we'll get the big Q tag next to him. Zach Attack, he also has the questionable tag. He has been dealing with an ankle issue, but they're saying he's closer to doubtful. That is going to be a game in San Antonio against the Spurs. Of course, we know that Lou Williams is going to miss a few games with his own hamstring issue. Scrolling through, Brandon Ingram is not expected to return for a couple more games, and he has already been ruled out. We know that Rajon Rondo is still out as well, so that bodes well for any of the Lakers that are going to be taking the court in Charlotte. We've got, Josh Jackson is dealing with a toe injury. He is listed as questionable. Eric Gordon is dealing with a variety of maladies. He's got a sore knee, and we'll have to see what happens. We know that there's been a little bit of a changing of the guard there in Houston for what's going on. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, he is playing on Friday. He was gone for personal reasons for a couple games, so he should play in the back-to-back, but that's something to keep an eye on because he is forever dinged up at various points. Reggie Bullock, he is also questionable. He is dealing with an ankle injury. We've got a lot more than I thought here, Adam. Let's see.
Yeah, sounds like a fun Saturday.
Yeah, glad I'm not right in the deep dive. Oh, wait, you are. Al Horford, I suspect, has been dealing with a bruised kneecap. So he has already missed 4 games. This could be a 5th for him going against Detroit. And that looks to be the rest of the notable guys. If we come across anybody else, we will bring them up. We've got point guard, Adam. We'll start there. We've got Russell Westbrook at the top of the list. He is checking in at $11,200. He is the most expensive player on the DraftKings slate, followed by James Harden, 100 points or $100 less, and LeBron James, 500 less. Karl Anthony Towns, the first of the stalwarts that is just below that 5-figure price points. What are you looking at here with regards to Westbrook or perhaps Kemba Walker, maybe even Kyrie Irving? Yikes, they're all on back-to-backs. Is that going to influence you?
Not a ton because they're all on back-to-backs, and it's something that I think is really hard to quantify on a night-to-night basis, so it's not something I factor in too much, unless it's unusual circumstances like one of them happens to be coming off of a double overtime game or something like that. So I think that, kind of just looking at it at face value, it's a nice pace up spot for, or at least a fast-paced spot for Russell Westbrook as they take on a Clippers team that has been struggling a bit defensively and plays at a reasonably fast pace. So I like him a little more than I like Harden. Obviously Harden coming off that monster game against the Lakers, but now facing a Memphis team that plays slow and is very good defensively. Not that Harden, not that, it's easy for anyone to slow down Harden, but these are 2 of the slowest paced teams in the league. That's obviously going to limit possessions, and then it's an efficient defense as well. So where he's almost the exact same price tag as Russell Westbrook, it's hard to like him more. And then Kemba, the way that game started, hopefully we get a blowout in the Charlotte game. Recording this on Friday night. Hopefully that game blows out and we only have Kemba play like 3 quarters, so he's relatively rested for this game against the Lakers, because that's a game where I love the spot for Kemba. He should be able to have a monster game here against one of the faster-paced teams in the league. So where I can get some savings, I think it's a spot where you can pretty easily see Kemba go for 50+.
All right, talking through some of the savings here, we've got Jeff Teague and Derrick Rose taking on Phoenix. They're at 6,200, 6,000. That feels like they're somewhat appropriately priced. Alonzo Ball has been okay for $5,600. We know that he does have the ability to reach 40 fantasy points if things go his way. He just hasn't done it for a while. He's been in the mid-30s, mid to upper 30s a couple times. So that's some intriguing tournament options. And then looking for some of the discount guys. Is it DeAndre or DeAnthony Melton? I'm blanking now. But DeAnthony had a dud, 21 minutes in his last game, missed every shot, was 0 for 4, salvaged it a teensy tiny bit with 2 steals, 3 blocks. Reverse that, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Horrible, but we are to expect that of youngsters. I don't mind going back to him in this game. And then the other guy that was kind of popping up for me a little bit was, as a cautionary tale, was Gilgeous Alexander. And he has had 2 substandard outings against the Russell Westbrook-led Thunder. He is averaging around 20, 24 minutes a game in those, and he has been bad with just 10 fantasy points on average. Putting it in perspective, his last couple games, he has been under 20 fantasy points as well. So perhaps he is hitting the wall early. We'll have to see what happens there. Any of these discount guys intrigue you at first blush before we get really good injury updates, shoot-around news, etc.?
Yeah, I think those are some pretty appealing price tags on DraftKings. Gilgeous Alexander at $5K, obviously he's been a bit disappointing. But, for example, on Thursday, he played 28 minutes in 3 quarters, didn't finish that game in a blowout against the Spurs. So the minute should be there for him with Lou Williams out. I think he's cheap enough that he's still appealing. Melton on a bounce back, bouncing back from a poor performance his last time out. The price tag's gotten expensive enough to where I don't totally, love him here, and Minnesota has been good defensively. Obviously, a lot also depends on Devin Booker, who is still currently listed as questionable. So where there's guys priced around him like Gilgeous Alexander and like Dennis Schroeder, Lonzo Ball, Reggie Jackson, like I prefer those guys by a little bit just because, I think they're better than Melton. But in general, I think that's a price range where you probably aren't going to be overly confident in any one guy, but rotating through those guys if you're playing multiple lineups is probably a good way to go because there's enough guys there with upside that one or two of them probably will come through for you.
All right. And then the one guy that's going to look cheap, but do keep in mind we do have Portis back along with Chris Dunn, though Dunn's been coming off the bench. But Ryan Arcidiacono is 3,500. That may seem a little bit appealing, and don't hate it in tournaments, but we probably can only expect low 20-ish minutes. And he just doesn't take enough shots to have a good floor. But he's sort of in the mix as some tournament value because he could get gusts up to 20 points. And at that point, at 3,500, not horrible. Again, only 12 teams in our player pool, so we're going to have to find some scary punts until value opens up. And value will open up because the NBA, I think the players union, they're treating this kind of like late February, early March, Adam, with all the people sitting and resting.
Yeah, well, and you mentioning Arcidiacono, I don't want to go there because of Dunn being back, but I do think that $5,200 Chris Dunn's another guy you can throw into that conversation with all those, low 5K point guards. He played 26 minutes last game. They're pretty clearly ramping up his minutes, and I would expect him to take over the reins from Arcidiacono sooner rather than later.
Yep, he was going to be my transitional play as we go over here to the shooting guard. God bless multi-position eligibility that has made things more or less positionless over here on DraftKings. I am going to assume that probably Booker and potentially even Zach LaVine, who, as I mentioned, was leaning a little bit more towards doubtful than questionable, are out. But that still leaves James Harden up at the tippy top there against Memphis. We have DeMar DeRozan going against Chicago. Those would be your premium options. Kind of down in the midpoint, Jeremy Lamb is somewhat intriguing going against the Lakers. As you mentioned, that should be a pace-up spot. He checks in at 5,300. You can get him at shooting guard or small forward. That gives you a ton of flexibility. And then the last guy I was kind of looking at because I never know what to do with him, Adam, but a $4,500 Josh Hart is still a little bit intriguing here at this point. I hate to look to him because he has been propping himself up with the hustle stats with averaging 2.5 blocks plus steals over the last 3 games, but it is someone to consider against Charlotte. Shooting guard feeling less than appealing here on DraftKings. Do you see a diamond in the rough that's popping up for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty ugly position. At the top, I do like the spot for DeRozan going against Chicago. I like the Jeremy Lamb call, even if, he's more likely to play 30 to 32 minutes now that MKG is back. It's still a really nice spot here against the Lakers because of the increase in pace. So I think that's a really, really good price tag. And then also Justin Holiday still played 38 minutes last game. It's a favorable matchup against the Spurs. He's not a player that I really like at all, as we've talked about a lot this season, but he's probably going to play big minutes on a relatively short slate in a nice matchup. So I don't mind there. And then as far as value goes, Josh Hart and Derek White, both guys that should be out there for a reasonable number of minutes. Who knows what they do with those minutes, but you can obviously look to either one.
All right, heading along over here to the small forward position. The premium plays, of course, are going to be LeBron James and Paul George. Reminder, Paul George is on the back-to-back. And then Kyle Kuzma. Adam, if you haven't looked, and judging by the ownership, a lot of people have not. He is running on 7 straight games of 40 DraftKings points or more. He is playing in the mid to upper 30 minutes each game, potential, and it's really helping with Brandon Ingram out. He is kind of at this moment the second best player, I think, on the Lakers. 7,800, I think, could keep his popularity suppressed somewhat, but he is someone interesting to me. How are you feeling about that 7,800 price tag when we have all 3 of the forwards, small forwards / power forwards for the Clippers cheaper than him, and TJ Warren? We have an embarrassment of riches here, unlike this shooting guard position.
Right. I think the price tag for Kuzma is fine, but the minutes have been there for a while. We're finally seeing him be a bit more productive. So I don't have any issue with him. But like you said, you do get at least similar upside from guys like Tobias Harris and Gallinari, even and TJ Warren. It's a difficult matchup for Warren in particular. But I think that they're all perfectly fine tournament options. Kuzma just kind of feels like he's priced to his ceiling. So if I get some of him, that's fine. But I'd kind of, especially like on DraftKings, where you're looking at that $7,800 price tag at small forward, you also have DeMar DeRozan for $800 more at small forward. So it'll probably be pretty tough for me to actually land on Kuzma here.
All right. Do we need to rethink how we approach Andrew Wiggins? He has played an average of 35 minutes, which is about what he typically does. But he's been taking a lot more shots, particularly with Jimmy Butler out. Over his last 4 games, he has 15, 18, and 19 shot attempts. Now, he's been hitting them at a pretty good clip, just over 50%. But he is a scorer. He doesn't take a ton of three-pointers, and usually he takes decent shots. Is the lack of Jimmy Butler actually boosting him up? Now, he doesn't have terrifying upside, but the floor is much, much higher than I expected. Again, we're paying $6,400. He's gone up about 15% in his price point over the last 2 weeks. But 6-game slate, Andrew Wiggins, he is eligible at shooting guard. Is that someone you would consider on this shorter slate, or mid-range slate, we should say?
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that he's been a little bit better this year, too, in terms of picking up peripherals. The concern for me has been that since the trade, his minutes had been down as a result of Robert Covington logging like 38 minutes and then, Derrick Rose having to get his 28 to 30. So, that's the concern, is that I don't think he has that clear path to 36 to 38 minutes like he did, like every single game for a while this year. But like you said, we are seeing the minutes trend up. So I think that Wiggins, it's a nice spot for Wiggins, no question.
All right, last guy, and this will transition us on over here to power forward. Marvin Williams, 5,100. I like the matchup against the Lakers for him. He has been very solid his last few games. Now, we know he is a decent rebounder. I believe, if memory serves, and I know you will correct me on this if I'm wrong, he has flirted with closing in some of the games recently, and he has been, taking his shots from three-point range. His last 3 games, he is 3 of 7 from downtown in all 3. I like that. He's averaging 7.5 boards over those 3 games in a steal per game. That's relatively solid for 5,100. The pace up against the Lakers, I think, helps him more than a lot of the other Charlotte guys.
Yeah, it's just a tough price tag for me. Like, I expect him to play around 30 minutes, maybe get a few minutes at the 5 if the Lakers run Kyle Kuzma out there. But I don't know, it's a little more expensive than I feel comfortable with. So not sure how much of him I'll actually end up with.
All right. Well, for just $7,900 at the power forward position, you can get LaMarcus Aldridge. Is that a good starting point for power forward?
Yeah, I mean, I always like Aldridge. He's really been disappointing lately, but all that does is keep the ownership down. The price tag, went up a little bit on DraftKings from $7,500 against the Clippers to $7,900 against Chicago. But again, you have one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA in the Bulls, also a very poor defensive team. Aldridge, the usage is still there for Aldridge. The rebounds are there. It's just been a matter of the Spurs constantly being in blowouts, whether they're doing the blowing out or getting their asses kicked. You've just seen kind of inconsistent minutes as a result of that. So I think that Aldridge remains a good player.
All right. We're going to take a little in-game break to remind everybody of the 24 days of giveaways here, continuing at Awesemo.com. All you need to do is rate and leave a review on the iTunes page or on the YouTube page here for any of our shows, including this one, which will be posted on YouTube. The topic of the comment is of today going to be favorite NBA, favorite any mascot of all time. Adam, I was thinking NBA, but let's open it up to everything. Who is your favorite NBA mascot? Caught you off guard. I will say mine while you think of it. I think the Phoenix Gorilla was by far my favorite. I don't know if he's still active or not. I think they called him Go, like Geo, like Gorilla. But I'm trying to remember actually watching a Phoenix game and seeing him. And I can't for the last couple of years, but I do remember him a couple of years ago. So he is my all-time favorite. My second favorite, kind of a mascot, kind of a good luck totem, if you will, Bill the Beer Man. Started out in Seattle. He actually sold beer, and he would take a full tray of beer stand up on the railings and lead the crowd in cheers. And finally, they said, you know what? We're going to have you stop selling beer. And they were paying him like $60,000 a year to be at Seahawks and Sonic games back in the early 80s.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, like I can't even picture NBA mascots. Like I'm trying to think of it. I can't picture any, but that's
Charlotte cool. Hornet comes to mind.
Yeah.
Don't remember him. Bango the Buck from Milwaukee. Now I watch some of the times when you watch the NBA package, they do the halftime entertainments or the between quarter stuff, and you can see some of the mascots. So those are the ones I remember. And Squatch, R.I.P. Seattle Supersonics, but Sasquatch was the guy for me. I don't know who the Wizards mascot is. It's that weird looking blue guy.
Yeah,
I think his name is G-Wiz, but Screech and the Caps and the Nats kind of have the same eagle looking dude, even though it's different. But anyway, all right, so there you go. Everybody who enters is eligible for the drawing by leaving that comment. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, leave a rating and review on iTunes. You'll be eligible for the drawing of one day. You'll get 1 month of your choice of Awesemo premium content for a sport. If you want NBA, you can take NBA. If you want NFL, it's yours. Hockey, etc. If you're already an Awesemo.com subscriber, you can get one piece of merchandise out of the Awesemo swag store. Go to shop.awesemo.com and you can see what we have. We've got hoodies, we've got multiple hats, we've got all sorts of shirts. They're kind of neat. I'm usually not one who's into the swag, but I actually kind of like some of these. I think I need a knit cap, Adam, because it's going to start getting cold here in the Washington, D.C. area. Yeah,
it gets a little bit chilly.
All right, back to the power forward. So if we're looking at, let's hit up on the Clippers here. If we've got Harris, if we've got Gallinari, if we've got Harrell, their prices keep coming down because, hey, their performances have as well. But goodness gracious, Montrezl Harrell at 5,600, not the easiest of matchups going against Steven Adams. He's played them twice already, averaging just 18 minutes per game, 14 fantasy points. But at 5,600, that's going to make me interested in him. I think if I was going to look for anybody, though, I would probably go with Harris, I think, would be the way I would go. Who do you think Paul George is going to end up guarding? Would it be Harris or would it be
probably, yeah, one of the two, probably Harris. Most likely Harris.
Then maybe I want Gallinari. I was thinking him on Gallinari, but because I thought Gallinari, you said, was going to start playing a little more on the 5.
I mean, that's what Rivers said. It's not a spot that I would expect it here, though. I think Boban probably gets.
Yeah, I just kind of think Boban as the interchangeable part. So, sorry.
Yeah, I think Boban actually probably picks up some minutes here because of this matchup.
Oh my! You said the magic word. We'll get to that shortly. Last guy that kind of pops a little bit, Marcus Morris. Yes, he does actually have a little bit of revenge in his heart. He has played quite well when he goes back against Detroit. He's already played them twice this season. This will be his third matchup with them, averaging 28 minutes and 30 fantasy points. That's relatively solid. The price tag, though, $6,700. What happened to getting him in the mid-5,000s, Adam?
Yeah, those days are gone.
Long gone. Anybody else here as you quickly scroll through power forward, or shall we switch to the pivot position?
Bobby Portis kind of in that same situation as Chris Dunn, with the minutes trending up. Played 22 minutes against Orlando. Kind of expensive on DraftKings. I'm not sure what his price is on FanDuel, though. I don't know if you happen to have it in front of you, but I know he was significantly cheaper on FanDuel last slate. If that's still the case, then trying to get on him before he has a blow-up game is probably a good idea.
That is a reasonable take there. I'm just looking up here. I want to see how Clint Capella does against Marc Gasol. Hey, not too shabby. Averaging, let's see. Well, his last 5 games are 42, 27, 33, 38, and 39 DraftKings points. That's not the worst, but he is at 8,100. If we flip the script there, now Gasol's coming in on a back-to-back, so that's sometimes tricky with what's going on there. But Gasol has been relatively solid against Tim. Do you like those guys, or you did say the magic word? Is Boban going to be in your life on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I don't plan on playing him. I just think that it's a spot where, Steven Adams probably plays around 36 minutes, and he's someone that Boban can be out there with, and he's a little big for Montrezl Harrell. So I just think you probably see a little bit different center rotation there, but wouldn't want to play Boban unless he actually gets the start, because then I think you could see him actually get into the mid-20s in minutes. So, yeah, I really like the spot at the top here for Karl Anthony Towns, though, against Phoenix. DeAndre Ayton's just one of the worst centers in the league at boxing out. He's bad defensively. Towns, we know, is averaging like almost 1.4 fantasy points per minute since the Jimmy Butler trade. So I love the spot for him. I think Andre Drummond's a little underpriced against Boston. But if I can find the money for Towns, I really like that spot.
All right, I am looking to see here. So this will be the third time the Clippers have played the Thunder. They played 2 in October, so they have not played them in about 6 weeks. In those games, that was back when Boban was coming off the bench. The first game he did get 16 minutes, and the second game he got 10. That first game he put up 20 fantasy points. That second game he put up 13. So he's a reasonable flyer. Because as Adam mentioned, if he gets between the 15 and 20-minute range and he's dropping, it is going to be some against Steven Adams, so maybe we'll give him 1.5 fantasy points per minute. All of a sudden you're flirting with 25 fantasy points potentially for a guy who's in the mid-3,000s. That is where the appeal comes in, or I guess 3,800, the upper 3,000s on DraftKings. So worth consideration, but we're going to have to give up either our center or our utility spot, and that could be a little bit of a tougher decision for us. Looking up and down here, Blake Griffin going against Boston. Now, let's just check his game logs. He has, so this is another one. They played a back-to-back. They being Detroit played a back-to-back against Boston the 27th and 30th of October. Griffin kind of dudded out there. It looks like what did he do? He only played 30 minutes, but he only took 13 shots, but he did not get the boards. And he had only 17 DraftKings points. The next night in Boston, he dropped 48. So your mileage may vary, but he does have some tournament upside. I would not be interested in playing him and Drummond on the same team, though.
Yeah, I agree with you there. One other value guy that I think is worth pointing out is Cody Zeller in the spot against the Lakers. We know that for the most part, the Lakers are running Tyson Chandler and JaVale McGee for most of their center minutes. If you can get around 30 minutes out of Cody Zeller here, I think he's a little too cheap.
All right. Last guy, Jakob Podol. He's got 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 and 4 of his last 6. Not horrible, he says with a pause, but discounted. Any interest in him at all at 4,100?
No, I mean, he's been a beneficiary of the Spurs being involved in blowouts almost every night. He's still not playing any minutes alongside LaMarcus Aldridge. So assuming the game stays competitive, you're looking at, probably 14 to 16 minutes for Poeltl.
All right. And the risk is there, even though the Spurs are the highest favorites, they're double-digit home favorites. We never know when that's going to take place. That could be the last 8 minutes of the game. It could be by midway through the second quarter. They have a commanding lead. It's NBA. It's a game of runs. And just depending on how everything kind of sequences together depends on what happens with some of these rotations with these tertiary guys. Final thought, you can catch us at 11 Saturday morning. We will be going game by game in much more depth as part of the NBA strategy show for Osmo.com. But I will leave you with this. If you can't catch that, check out the football content. Yahoo this week is running a phenomenal NFL tournament for Week 15. It is a $1 million prize pool. They are guaranteeing $250,000 of overlay, meaning there are just going to be 37,500 entries. That's $20 a piece, max entry of 10. So I am suspecting, my guess is at most it fills up to 30,000 entries. That means there's going to be close to $400,000 in potential overlay. Now you have to monetize that, but basically what we're saying is as soon as the game starts, you'll see your currently winnings right at kickoff go up about 40% just because of the empty slots and that guaranteed $250,000 of overlay. So if you have not yet made a deposit on Yahoo Daily Fantasy, you can already have a fantasy sports account there, but if you make your first deposit, use the promo code AWESOMO, they will match up to $30, your first $30 in free play You can deposit whatever you want. If you deposit 5, they'll match 5. You deposit 100, they're only going to match 30. But that will come to you in the form of Yahoo frequent player points, and those are available for immediate use in the contest. Now, it's not hard to use them at all because when you're signing up for the contest, you can choose, do I want to use my cash balance or do I want to use my points? So it's much easier than a lot of the other sites. A couple sites have that, but most of them don't. So that's one of the nice things. The other thing you'll want to keep in mind is there is no mass multi-entry upload. It's a 10-entry max on all of their tournaments, and they do not accept CSV files. So you have to input things by hand, which while you will still see, I'm sure, on Sunday, a lot of the big-name gamers, they're only going to be able to put in 10 lineups, just like you and I, as opposed to if you play the Millie Maker and you put in 1 or 2 like I do, they play 150. So I like us going 10 on 10. Pick your best 10 lineups and go to town. Adam, have you got your Yahoo account lined up?
Yeah, I mean, I have my account. I haven't registered the tournament yet, but I'll do that either tonight or tomorrow, most likely.
There we go. So again, promo code AWESOMO gets you $30, your first $30 match on your first deposit. If you're like me and Adam, you've already got accounts there, that won't work for you because we're playing daily fantasy sports. But if you have, like most of us are in friends and family leagues and all that fun stuff over there, if you have not yet made a deposit of any kind on their daily fantasy sports side, when you make your deposit, there'll be a little promo code for Awesemo. Put that in, and you'll get $30 in free play matched up to your first $30 of deposits. With that, we're going to get on out of here. Remember, you can see us again at 11 on Saturday morning as we will go game by game in excruciating detail about this and put in the comments your favorite mascot of all time to be eligible for the 24 days of giveaways. With that, gamers, good luck.